What's going on, guys? It's Jack back for another NBA draft breakdown here, taking a look at the other Bridges, Miles Bridges. Standing 6'6 or so, 6'7", 230, 6'10 wingspan. He's got good size, I think, for the NBA. From Michigan State, you guys all know him. Came back for his sophomore year, and he'll be 20 years old by the time the season comes around next year, coming off of averages of 17 points, 7 rebounds, and 3 assists per game. And so, what is Miles Bridges? What's he going to be at the next level? And to me, Miles Bridges is one of the players who really benefits from the change in today's NBA, because this is a guy who clearly would have been a case of the tweeners, right? He would have come into the draft process. If this was 5-10 years ago, they would have said he's not a 3, he's not a 4. What do we do with him? How do we play him? And it would have ultimately caused him to fall in the draft process. And I think Bridges really benefits from the pace and space NBA era that he's about to enter into. So who is Miles Bridges, though, outside of, the profiling of him as a tweener forward? Well, number one, if you haven't watched him play, this guy is an elite athlete. He may not look it in terms of his body type, but you'd be hard-pressed to find somebody who's going to jump higher than Miles Bridges. And at the same token, you're going to be hard-pressed to find someone who's a greater competitor than Miles Bridges. And I know that's something that's tough to measure because it's an internal quality, but he just seems to possess something that maybe not everyone has in terms of his mentality, his desire to win. And that's something that his teammates, his coaches all talk about. Now, offensively, as I said, he's an elite athlete, and so in transition, he is lethal. If you get him in the open court, an ability to get to the rim, Bridges is going to get there and he's going to finish with authority. And, one thing I really like for Miles Bridges this year was, opposed to last year, he started to take the ball off the dribble a bit more. Use athleticism to get to the rim, finish strong, finish through contact. And I thought he did a better job of that this past season. In addition, I thought he quieted some doubts on his jumper. Some people are still skeptical about his jumper, even though I thought it looked good. He had good form on it. Maybe he needed to raise his release a little bit, but I thought that improved a little bit. He got a little higher up his sophomore year, and I think he calmed some of the concerns about his jumper. I think it looks very good. He's got a smooth release on it as well. He got very comfortable with it, especially the fact that he had played so much 3 this year for Michigan State. I think it kind of forced him to develop that jumper a bit more. And so therefore, I think he did benefit from returning just on that standpoint alone. Defensively, he has adequate size, I think, to deal with NBA 4-men. He's strong enough for sure. And, that's the position I see him playing, because ultimately I don't think he's going to be able to deal with the quickness of NBA wings. Now, this brings me to the weaknesses for Miles Bridges, and there are a couple. I think, Miles Bridges could be too passive at times, and while he does have that aggressive competitor mindset, there's too many times where, Miles Bridges would kind of disappear from the game, become too passive, wouldn't look to get to the basket, wouldn't look to break down his defender off the dribble. And that's going to be something where I look to see at the NBA level, does he look to do that a little bit more often, especially if he's able to have some mismatches at the 4 position where he may have a little more foot quickness. And he has an extremely quick first step, it's just he doesn't always use it. Now, like I said, he finally started going to the basket this year, and he still, I don't think, did it enough. And that's going to be, like I just said, we're going to watch to see whether he does it, but I want to see him do it consistently. And that, I think, is going to be a key for Miles Bridges, because there's no reason why a person with his level of athleticism shouldn't be getting to the rim with more consistency. I will say he's going to need to tighten up his handle. And that's, I think, part of the reason why you don't see him drive as much. And so that's going to be an area where he's going to need to work on, throughout the draft process and as he gets into the NBA. Now, I see Bridges as a 4-man who's, undersized, but can shoot it from the outside and defend his position. Now, I don't think he's going to be a great defender, but I think he'll be perfectly fine within the team concepts. I really don't see him, becoming a star level player. I think there was a lot of hype about that, especially as a freshman. I see him more as a high level contributor, a role player. Maybe, there's been some comparisons to Jay Crowder, maybe filling a similar role to Harrison Barnes. I don't think their games, and I don't really see the comparison to Jay Crowder's game either, where Crowder was this tough-nosed defender. Barnes came in as a really premier high-level prospect from North Carolina who learned to become a role player. I think that type of role is what Bridges will have to adjust to at the NBA level. So that's what I see him, becoming more accustomed to as a four-man. Doesn't quite have the size. Came from a powerhouse program. He's going to need to become a four, a role player rather, and then he will expand his game from there. So guys, let me know what you think about Miles Bridges. What other prospects do you want to see me profile as we get closer to this June's draft? And as always, check us out on our Tuesday night at 6:30 live show, Draft Man Standing, where we cover both the NBA and NFL draft, and bring any questions you have to that live show. But that's it for this episode of Talking Ball. I'm out, guys. Peace.